today when I work in my studio, sometimes paintings that at the moment were kind of insignificant small studies and so in my studio. I don't have them anymore, but I keep them as memories, and sometimes I'm going back, and surprisingly enough, the colors and the way I'm treating the paint, it looks like what I did as a absolute beginner. I carefully try to avoid being sentimental and nostalgic, but that said, I've noticed that I'm thinking a lot about time past, meaning in history, but also in my own life, and I try to be in a way respectful towards who I was when I was 18 or 20 or 33 or whenever. So sometimes I'm wondering what could I have been thinking then, but I think I do have a relationship to it, even to myself as a kid. So I do think sometimes of paintings or drawings I did when I was 5 years old that were really important for me, and they were by no means exceptional. It was just ordinary kids drawing, but for me they were important and still are in a way. It's funny, I realized today when I work in my studio, sometimes paintings that at the moment were kind of insignificant small studies and so in my studio. I don't have them anymore, but I keep them as memories, and sometimes I'm going back, and surprisingly enough, the colors and the way I'm treating the paint, it looks like what I did as a absolute beginner. I do constantly have been looking at other art and reading and so I do have an intense relationship to art history and other artists, and sometimes I feel kinship, but I try to avoid making references to other artists, even if I'm really respecting it. I feel more like a simple thief sometimes when I steal something I need from. Then art history can come in very handy. One artist that I've been thinking a lot about is Kurt Schwitters, and the way he had like parallel tracks, one being the avant-garde artist doing his Merz stuff, but at the same time it was also continuing making his very traditional portraits and landscapes. And it's often said that he did that because he could more easily sell them. But somewhere I've read an interview with him where he's claiming that that's not the case. He really respected that and found it very important to do those things both at the same time, and that doesn't make sense from a like strictly art history point of view. It would be easier to tell the story different, but I like that kind of inconsistent, if you could say. Well, another artist that I've been thinking about in similar terms is De Chirico, and the fact that his early metaphysical paintings that are so attractive and mesmerizing, but it was a shock for me when I realized that he, so early on in his career, he left that and stopped doing those paintings and then moved into something more baroque and totally different. But then again, when he got older, he started looking back to that. So when you have the end result, the chronology is totally messed up, and that worries me in a creative way. It's funny. The other day I got a question about. Please tell me really good advice you once got, and I was thinking, and then my answer was this advice: don't become an artist. And because I think I really got that advice, and that got me going and triggered me to really be an artist. So for me, it's in a way it's about resistance and going against what's expected. So when I meet young people that ask me for advice, so I'm happy to encourage, but it's also important to figure out whether this person is dedicated or not, and is strong enough to keep going, even if circumstances and opinions around you are telling you differently. Where I am now, working with a few galleries and making exhibitions in several places, it's in a way a dream coming through, and something I spent a lot of time fantasizing about when I was younger. So I think it's good to have an aim and an idea, but it's also important not to be like blindsided and focus on a fantasy. Then, like in the process of making art, it's also important to keep your eyes open for the unexpected. That's where the future lies, I think.